July 25, 1944, 11:03 a.m. outside Saint-Lô, Normandy. The ground is still shaking. Not from thunder, from bombs. Thousands of them. The air reeks of cordite and churned earth as the last waves of American heavy bombers fade into the haze. Hedgerows that stood for centuries are shredded into splinters. German trenches are buried. Radios crackle with panic and half-heard orders. Then through the smoke something moves. At first it's dismissed as debris rolling downhill. Then someone shouts. A Feldwebel scrambles up the side of a crater, binoculars shaking in his hands. What he sees makes no sense. Dark shapes. Low, wide, moving fast. Tanks, he says, then louder. Panzer Neen. They are not German. M4 Sherman surge forward where no road exists. Tracks biting into mud, crushed hedgerow roots snapping like bones beneath their weight. Infantry cling to the hulls, faces streaked with dust and sweat, rifles bouncing against steel. The tanks don't slow. They don't hesitate. They push straight through what every German map says is impassable terrain. Somewhere behind them, standing upright in a command jeep as artillery booms in the distance, General George S. Patton grins. For weeks, the Germans believed this sector was safe. They were wrong. You can almost feel it now, the disbelief spreading along the German line. This isn't how armored warfare works. Tanks need roads, fuel depots, maintenance columns, carefully planned axes of advance. That's what the manuals say. That's what every staff officer in the Wehrmacht has been taught. But Patton has never cared much for manuals. As the dust settles from the bombing, American armor pours through the rupture like water through a shattered dam. Third Army units fan outward, engines screaming, radios alive with clipped commands and coded grid references. This isn't a cautious probe. This is exploitation, pure, relentless motion. German artillery crews scramble to reposition guns, only to realize the Americans are already past them. Infantry units try to establish blocking positions, but Shermans appear on their flanks, then their rear. Officers shout for updated maps. There are none. Inside a German command post several kilometers back, a major slams his fist onto a folding table, rattling coffee cups and map cases. The situation report in his hand is already obsolete. Units marked as engaged are gone. Supply routes are cut. Telephone lines are dead. How did they get there? He demands. No one answers. Because there is no road there, no bridge, no corridor through the bocage that should allow an armored column to pass. Yet Patton's tanks are appearing behind defensive lines that were never meant to be defended from behind. This is the moment German intelligence begins to collapse. For the men on the ground, it feels like being hunted by something that doesn't obey the rules of physics. Shermans crash through hedgerows using welded steel prongs, crude, improvised devices built in secret workshops by American engineers who were told speed mattered more than elegance. Each hedge becomes a doorway. Each field, a potential killing ground. And the tanks never stop. Patton has ordered it that way. Fuel trucks drive until their engines overheat. Crews sleep in turns, boots still on, hands resting on hot steel. Mechanics work by headlamp, patching track links and road wheels just long enough to keep the column moving. The order is simple: advance until resistance collapses, then keep going. You can hear it in the radio traffic. No hesitation, no debate. Advance. Bypass resistance. Leave them for the infantry. German Panzer commanders, veterans of Poland, France, Russia, stare at reports that feel like bad jokes. Units are being outflanked not by hours but by minutes. Defensive lines carefully prepared after D-Day are simply irrelevant. One officer later admits in disbelief, "We were no longer fighting an army, we were fighting momentum." And Patton understands momentum better than anyone alive. He has waited for this moment since Sicily, since being sidelined, since being told to stay quiet while others plan the war. Now unleashed, he treats the battlefield like a living thing, something to be shocked, disoriented, and broken before it can react. As Third Army surges forward, German commanders make a fatal assumption. They believe this cannot last. No army, they tell themselves, can move this fast for long. Supply lines will stretch, fuel will run dry, the Americans will pause, they always do. So they wait. They pull back carefully, they plan counterattacks, they assume tomorrow will bring order. But Patton is not interested in tomorrow. By nightfall, American tanks are dozens of kilometers beyond their expected positions. German rear area units wake to the sound of engines and gunfire where there should be none. Convoys are ambushed. Headquarters relocate twice, then 3 times, always too late. And still the Shermans keep coming. Somewhere in the darkness, a German officer unfolds his map again, tracing routes that no longer exist, trying to understand how an entire front is unraveling without a single decisive battle. He doesn't yet realize the truth. This isn't a breakthrough. It's a collapse, and it's only just beginning. The night offers no relief. Engines rumble in the dark, low and constant, like something alive moving through the French countryside. There are no headlights, only the faint glow of instrument panels and the occasional flash of a cigarette cupped in a trembling hand. American columns move by instinct now, guided by hurried map checks, shouted directions, and the unspoken understanding that stopping is more dangerous than getting lost. This is the part German doctrine never planned for. Inside a Sherman turret, the air is hot and metallic. Sweat runs down the loader's back as he braces himself against the rocking hull. The driver keeps one eye on the terrain, the other on the tank ahead, judging distance by silhouette alone. Every hedgerow could hide a Panzer team. Every bend could be an ambush. They don't slow. Patton has ordered continuous movement, 20 hours a day if possible. Units leapfrog forward while others refuel and repair, then surge ahead again. It's not elegant, it's not safe, but it is overwhelming. At dawn, German rear area troops wake to a nightmare. A Feldgendarmerie checkpoint near Coutances hears engines from the wrong direction. Before the sentries can react, Shermans burst through the morning mist, .50 caliber machine guns hammering. The checkpoint dissolves in seconds. Trucks burn. Radios are abandoned mid-transmission. This isn't how fronts are supposed to behave. German Panzer divisions were trained to expect penetration at a Schwerpunkt, a focal point, followed by consolidation. Instead, Patton's advance feels like a flood bursting through every weak seam at once. No pause, no attempt to hold ground. Just movement. A staff officer in Panzer Group West writes in his log that morning, "Enemy armor operating beyond assumed logistical limits." Beyond assumed limits. It's an understatement born of desperation. Patton understands something his enemies do not. Speed is not just movement, it is psychological warfare. Every kilometer gained faster than expected multiplies confusion. Orders arrive too late. Counterattacks hit empty ground. Reserves move toward threats that no longer exist. German maps become lies. Markers showing friendly units remain in place long after those units have been cut off, bypassed, or shattered. Telephone lines go dead as American armor crosses them again and again. Radio traffic becomes a jumble of overlapping calls, units asking where the front is, and no one able to answer. One Panzer commander later admits his greatest fear was not American firepower, but American unpredictability. They did not attack where logic dictated, he says. They attacked where we were weakest because we assumed they could not reach it. Patton encourages this chaos. He pushes reconnaissance units far ahead of the main body, daring the Germans to react. When resistance stiffens, he doesn't smash it head-on. He slides around it, leaving pockets of German troops stranded, intact but irrelevant. Infantry mop them up later. This philosophy horrifies more cautious Allied commanders. To Patton, it is simple arithmetic. A bypassed enemy is a defeated enemy if you move fast enough. Fuel becomes the limiting factor. Jerry cans are stacked on tank decks. Tankers siphon from abandoned German vehicles. Truck drivers push themselves to exhaustion, knowing that a stalled column is a dead column. Patton knows the risk. He accepts it. He has told his officers, a good plan violently executed now is better than a perfect plan next week. Now is everything. By July 28th, the scale of the advance becomes impossible to ignore. Entire German formations are dissolving not because they are destroyed, but because they are displaced. Commanders cannot find their own troops. Units retreat into areas already occupied by Americans. Orders contradict reality. And then comes the realization that terrifies German command. This isn't an isolated thrust. It's an operational philosophy. Patton isn't racing toward a single objective. He is racing toward the enemy's ability to think. Every hour gained is another hour the Germans cannot recover. Every night march steals tomorrow from them. A captured German major, interrogated under a canvas tent lit by a single bulb, finally says it aloud. We are reacting to ghosts. But these ghosts have engines and guns. As Third Army pushes deeper into Brittany and across the collapsing Norman front, Patton's subordinates begin to see it too. This isn't just fast, it's unprecedented. No modern army has sustained this tempo. No supply system should allow it. Yet it continues. And somewhere ahead, German commanders are preparing their counterstroke, convinced that the Americans have finally overextended themselves. They believe Patton has gone too far. What they don't realize is that this is exactly where he wants them. The German counterattack begins at dawn. At least that's what the orders say. On paper, it is a textbook response, armored reserves striking the flanks of an overextended enemy, restoring the line, re-establishing control. Panzer units are instructed to move toward designated assembly areas, to hit Patton's spearheads where they should be weakest. But when they arrive, there is nothing there. No American columns, no fuel dumps, no exposed headquarters, just empty roads and fields scarred by fresh track marks already fatting into the dust. The Americans have moved on. Inside a half-destroyed chateau serving as a temporary German command post, officers huddle over maps that no longer reflect reality. Pencils scratch. Arrows are redrawn. Each correction arrives too late. The enemy is always one step ahead, sometimes two. This is when the truth finally settles in. Pat is not advancing along a line. He is advancing through time. German commanders begin to understand that every decision they make is based on yesterday's battlefield. Their counterattacks are not being defeated. They are being bypassed before they can even begin. A Panzer regiment turns south, only to be told that American armor has already crossed its supply route. Another swings west to seal a gap that no longer exists. Units collide in confusion, clogging narrow roads, burning precious fuel while the real enemy roams freely beyond them. A German colonel writes later that it felt like trying to fence in a storm. Meanwhile, Patton's headquarters is already packing up. Maps are rolled, radios are loaded. The command post moves forward again, closer to the sound of guns. Patton refuses to command from the rear. He wants to feel the battle, to hear it, smell it. He believes distance dulls instinct. His staff struggles to keep up. Orders come fast, sometimes too fast, but they all point in the same direction, forward. Patton's doctrine is simple but brutal. Speed creates opportunity, and opportunity creates collapse. He doesn't wait for confirmation of German weakness. He assumes it, and more often than not, he's right. By early August, German resistance begins to rot from the inside. Units still capable of fighting find themselves leaderless. Officers are killed, captured, or cut off. Communications break down completely. Some formations retreat not because they are ordered to, but because they no longer know where to go. American patrols encounter German soldiers wandering along roads, weapons slung but unfired, asking for directions. Others fight fiercely in isolated pockets, unaware that the front has already passed them by. This is not defeat by annihilation. It is defeat by disorientation. Patton understands that destruction is not always necessary. An enemy who cannot orient himself in space or time is already beaten. Every kilometer gained without a fight is a victory. But speed has a price. Fuel shortages become critical. Ammunition runs low. Tanks throw tracks, engines seize, men collapse from exhaustion. The pace is beginning to strain even Third Army's formidable logistics. Some of Patton's officers begin to worry. They look at the maps, the real ones, and realize how far they've gone, how thin the lines are, how vulnerable they would be if the Germans ever managed to organize a coherent response. Patton hears their concerns. He dismisses them with a wave. The enemy's situation is worse than ours, he says, and getting worse by the hour. He is betting everything on that assumption. Then, on August 7th, the Germans finally strike with everything they have left. Operation Luttich. Panzer divisions surge toward Mortain in a desperate attempt to cut off Patton's armored spearheads and restore the front. For a moment, just a moment, it looks like the gamble may have gone too far. American units reel under the weight of the attack. Tank crews brace for close-range combat. The momentum falters. And across the battlefield, German commanders believe they have finally caught Patton. They believe the storm has outrun itself. They are about to learn how wrong they are. August 7, 1944, Mortain. The German attack hits hard and fast, Panthers and Panzer IVs pushing through morning fog, infantry riding the hulls, engines growling with purpose. For the first time in days, the momentum seems to shift. American forward units fall back. Radios crackle with urgent reports. The words counterattack finally carry weight. This is the moment German command has been waiting for. They believe they've caught Patton overextended, armor too far ahead, supply lines stretched thin, flanks exposed. On their maps, the American advance is a dagger thrust that can be snapped in half. But Patton isn't holding a dagger. He's holding a hammer. As German armor advances, they find American resistance where none should exist. Anti-tank guns already dug in, tank destroyers positioned on high ground, infantry units braced behind hedgerows, bazookas ready. The Americans don't panic. They absorb the blow. And then the air clears. The clouds lift just enough. Allied aircraft appear overhead, P-47 Thunderbolts diving out of the sun, engines screaming, rockets streaking toward German columns stalled on narrow roads. Panthers burn, convoys scatter. The counterattack loses coherence within hours. This is where Patton's true weapon reveals itself. Speed didn't just move his army forward, it positioned it everywhere at once. German commanders realize too late that they are attacking not a fragile spearhead, but a moving front that has already reorganized behind their advance. Patton's bypassed units now become ambushes. His rapid movement has placed forces in depth without ever stopping to dig in the way doctrine demands. Mortain becomes a trap. German units push forward only to find their retreat threatened almost immediately. Roads clog with burning vehicles. Orders to advance are replaced by frantic calls to withdraw. Some formations never receive either. Patton watches reports come in from his forward command post, jaw set, eyes sharp. He does not celebrate. He does not slow down. He accelerates. While German command struggles to salvage Operation Luttich, Patton shifts his attention east. He sees what others do not yet fully grasp. The German front is no longer a line. It's a series of fragments, and fragments can be encircled. Orders go out rapidly. Exploit. Pursue. Do not stop. Third Army pivots, columns racing toward the closing jaws of what will become the Falaise pocket. Patton's armor surges north and east, linking with other Allied forces in a tightening ring. German units retreating from Mortain Run straight into new American positions they didn't know existed. Entire divisions find themselves boxed in by forces that, on paper, should still be days away. A German general later writes that it felt as if the Americans were teleporting. This is the ultimate failure of German intelligence. They had measured Patton's army in kilometers per day. They should have measured it in minutes. As August wears on, the scale of the collapse becomes undeniable. Roads are choked with destroyed equipment. Prisoners pour in by the thousands, exhausted, disoriented, stunned by how completely the situation has unraveled. Patton's gamble has paid off. He did not defeat the Germans by meeting them head-on. He defeated them by making their entire concept of the battlefield obsolete. But even as victory becomes clear, Patton knows something others do not. This is not the end. The same speed that shattered the German front in Normandy is about to carry Third Army across France itself, faster than anyone believes possible. And once again, German commanders will open their maps, trace the American advance, and ask the same question. How did they get there? The advance does not slow after Mortain. If anything, it becomes more dangerous. August 1944, northern France. The roads are no longer roads, they are scars. Columns of wrecked German vehicles line the ditches, twisted steel still smoking in the summer heat. The smell of burned fuel hangs heavy in the air. Prisoners shuffle east under guard, some still glancing over their shoulders as if expecting American tanks to materialize again from nowhere. Because sometimes they do. Patton's Third Army now moves on instinct, not schedules. Reconnaissance elements push far ahead, probing for weak seams. When resistance appears, it is not confronted, it is flowed around. The front stretches and bends like something organic, always reforming farther forward. German command can no longer define where the battle is. Orders from Berlin arrive demanding firm defensive lines along rivers that have already been crossed. Panzer units are told to hold cities that are no longer in German hands. Intelligence summaries describe American movements that sound exaggerated, even delusional. They are not. Patton has discovered the ultimate vulnerability of a retreating army. It must follow roads. So he abandons them. Shermans crash through orchards, vineyards, farm fields still littered with summer harvest. Tracks churn soil into mud. Civilians watch in stunned silence as tanks pass where wagons once rolled. American engineers throw temporary bridges across streams in hours, sometimes minutes under fire. German officers stare at their maps in disbelief. There is no blue line where the Americans are appearing, no axis of advance, just a widening stain of chaos. One German staff officer later admits that they began to distrust their own reconnaissance. Reports were dismissed as impossible. Tanks could not be there. There was no route, no supply line. But Patton's supply line is motion itself. Fuel trucks run continuously, drivers sleeping at the wheel until relieved. Ammunition is rationed not by scarcity, but by distance to the next fight. When supplies lag, Patton simply pushes harder, knowing every kilometer gained reduces the enemy's ability to recover. It is reckless. It is brilliant. And it is terrifying to watch from the other side. German resistance degrades from organized defense into scattered violence. Snipers, roadblocks, desperate rear guards fighting not to hold ground but to buy time. Time Patton refuses to give them. American tank crews grow accustomed to the surreal. Towns captured by reconnaissance units before infantry arrives. German headquarters taken intact, maps still on the walls. Officers captured while shaving, meals still warm. One lieutenant describes rolling into a village square and finding German soldiers eating breakfast, utterly unprepared. They looked more surprised than we were, he says. The truth is spreading. This is no longer a campaign. It is a pursuit. By late August, the German army in France is no longer retreating, it is fleeing. And Patton is not chasing an enemy that intends to stand and fight. He is chasing one that intends to escape. That makes speed everything. But speed cannot outrun reality forever. Fuel shortages loom again. Trucks are hundreds of kilometers from depots. Some units advance on fumes, engines sputtering, commanders calculating distances with almost superstitious precision. Patton knows the danger. He pushes anyway, because he senses something his enemies do not. The Germans are not preparing a new defense. They are running for the border. And if Third Army can just keep moving just a little longer, there will be nothing left in front of them to stop. Somewhere ahead lies the Seine, then the Meuse, then Germany itself. And once again, German commanders are about to discover that Patton does not need roads to reach them. He needs momentum. Late August 1944. Somewhere east of Paris, in a commandeered farmhouse that now serves as a temporary headquarters, a German general stares at a wall map riddled with pins. Red for German units, blue for the Americans. There is almost no red left. Entire formations have vanished, not destroyed in battle, but erased by movement. Divisions are no longer units. They are clusters of survivors drifting east, abandoning heavy equipment to move faster, trading cohesion for escape. This is the moment German command stops pretending. Intercepted communications, post-war interrogations, private diaries, they all converge on the same realization. The American advance has exceeded every planning assumption. Patton's army is no longer behaving like a conventional force. It is behaving like a force of nature. A German staff report from this period contains a line that is never meant for propaganda. Enemy armored units appear where terrain analysis indicates no movement possible. No movement possible. That is the admission. For months, German engineers and intelligence officers had studied Normandy's bocage and northern France's broken terrain, concluding that it favored defense. Narrow roads, natural choke points, rivers and hedgerows, perfect for slowing armor. Patton turned all of it into irrelevant detail. By refusing to be constrained by roads, by doctrine, or by the enemy's expectations, he shattered the German army's ability to predict. And without prediction, command collapses. German generals are no longer asking where the Americans are. They are asking where they will appear next. That question has no answer. American columns now reach the Seine faster than planners ever intended. In some places, German rear guards arrive to destroy bridges only to find Americans already crossing farther upstream. The retreat becomes a race, and the Germans are losing. Patton's officers watch it unfold with a mix of awe and unease. They know how thin their margin is. They know how easily a sudden German stand could change everything. But it never comes. The Germans are too disorganized, too shaken, too late. One captured German colonel finally puts it into words during interrogation. He does not speak of tanks or aircraft or numbers. He speaks of tempo. We could no longer set the rhythm of the battle, he says. Patton did. We were always responding, always behind. That is the essence of it. Patton didn't just move faster than expected. He moved faster than the enemy's ability to think. The belief that tanks required roads, that armies advanced along lines, that battles unfolded in predictable phases. All of it collapsed under the weight of relentless motion. The German army in France was not defeated because it lacked courage or experience. It was defeated because it lost the initiative and never got it back. As Third Army presses onward toward the German border, Patton stands in his command vehicle, helmet off, staring east. He knows the war is not over. He knows harder fighting lies ahead. But he also knows something fundamental has changed. The myth of German operational superiority has been broken. Not by superior numbers, not by overwhelming firepower, but by speed used without mercy. When German commanders later tried to explain what happened in Normandy, they struggled for words. Some blamed fuel shortages, others blamed air power, many blamed Hitler. But in private, in diaries and interrogations, a simpler truth emerges. They never imagined an army could move like that. And once Patton proved that it could, there was no way to stop him. End